Hey everybody, and welcome to the second part of Introduction to Unreal Engine. Now in this part, we're going to continue exactly where we stopped in the first one, where we basically just downloaded the Epic Games Launcher. We made an account, so now we're going to start with building our very first project and see what that means for us. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just simply going to click on Unreal Engine. Now this is provided you've already installed a version of it. If you don't know how to do it, just check the first video and you will see. So by clicking on that button, it's going to start launching the Unreal Engine. Editor is going to initialize, and in a few seconds it should give us the starting screen. As soon as it loads, what you're going to see is your projects, but in here we want to skip over to New Project and click on it. Now once we're here, what you're going to notice is that we have a template on which we want to start. We have all of these different versions here, and we have a few options on the bottom. So what do all of these mean? First of all, you need to decide if you're going to use a blueprint system. That is a great way to do stuff if you're not a coder. Blueprint is basically the visual coding language that Unreal uses to make stuff happen inside Unreal Engine. What you can do here is you can choose the blueprint, and you have different blueprints or different templates for, let's say, a first-person shooter or a flying game, puzzle, rolling side scroller. So all of these are basically prepared or pre-loaded options with blueprints to make your life a lot easier. So for example, let's say maybe you're making a game that's with a first-person shooter. You go into first person, you're gonna start with something like this. Now since I'm quite aware that most of you that are watching my channel are coming from the ArcViz section of working with 3ds Max, this is actually pretty good for you. The first person template is a very good option because all you can do is disable the gun, but we will see more about that later. The other option is if you want to use a C++. Again, you have all of these options here, but it's a different way. For now, I'm going to leave it at blueprint. Let's click on first person, and here we're done with that piece. Now what we want to do here, when we go below in these options, you can choose if you want to make your game for either a desktop or console or mobile and tablets. I'm going to leave it for desktop. We have maximum quality or scalable 2D or 3D. I'm going to leave it at maximum quality. And now here, this piece, you have no starter content or with starter content. Now this is a great addition to your new project, especially if you're new to Unreal. If you start with a starter content, this is going to populate your project with certain textures, assets, models, sounds, different types of effects, and pretty much it's going to give you the option to try out what you want to do or what Unreal Engine has to offer. Now I'm going to select where I want my project to be created, so let it be in Unreal Projects, and I'm going to name this DK testing area, like so, and I'm going to click the create project. Alright, and here we are inside Unreal. Now, whenever you're starting with a new software, be it a modeling software or a game engine, the first thing that you want to understand is what is it that you're actually looking at and what the user interface is. So in this video, I will try to give you a brief introduction to what you're basically seeing inside Unreal. Now, the first thing that I would like to point to is the tab bar at the top of the screen right here. Now, If you take a look at this, you can click on it and you can move it around. Now later on, when we start working inside the engine, you can have multiple tabs here, be it for materials or blueprints or anything, and you can basically just click on the tab and switch over to whatever it is that you were doing. So that's a good thing to know and very useful thing. And right underneath it, you have all of these options over here. Now this is the toolbar, or the main toolbar. Now the thing is that within this here toolbar, you have these little arrows down. When you click on them, you get additional options that control a lot of different things for a lot of different options. Now, since Unreal was started its own development, these tools have changed a bit. These toolbars have changed a bit, so now they have been optimized, so the most useful options for certain things, you can find a hotkey or a shortcut to them in the drop-down menus, but more for these in future videos. Next thing that I want to show you is this here, modes menu. In here is basically where you can choose to put all of the components that you have, and you can create a new scene. Now this is similar to what you would have in Max, in which you the first one here, which is place, is divided in different categories or different classes. You have recently placed, which is your history of placed items. You have the basics, which in Max would be creating geometry. Here you can see the cube, sphere, cylinder, cone, plane. So basically you can just drag into the scene, and you get the same gizmo as in Max. So you can move it around or you can just move it in multiple axes. You have lights, again similar like in Max. You have different types of lights. You have cinematics, where you can add cameras. You have visual effects. You have geometry, or this used to be known as BSP geometry, but this is basically geometry that you can modify inside Unreal, which can kind of help you for rapid prototyping of certain things in your scene. But for now, I'm not going to dive in deeper into that. You can use volumes, again, a lot of helpers for a lot of different things. And you can have all the classes, basically everything within one menu. Now the second thing is paint. Painting will allow you to basically either go with vertex paint or texture. So you can basically paint textures directly on whatever it is that you have. And this goes very well with the third option, which is landscape. Landscape will allow you to create terrain on which you can sculpt, and then with the help of the paint, you can just go ahead and repaint it to whatever terrain texture you would like to have. And then the next one is foliage. Now the foliage works similar to what you would have in Max as a scattering plugin. So when you think about foliage, it's basically you put all of the assets you would like to scatter. So if you're having difficulties visualizing this, think Forest Pack Pro or Multiscatter. Whatever you place in here, then you can go in and scatter that on each surface. And the last one here is the geometry editing, which is going to allow you to basically take whatever we create with the geometry here and modify it something like this. You go in, put a edit box, and then you can basically click on whatever you want to have like this, be it vertices or faces. So you get something like that. So when you deselect it, you actually get something inside Unreal. Now we come to the center point of our viewport, and that is the actual viewport. Now, similar as you would have in Max, this viewport, the way to navigate it through it is quite easy actually. To move around it, all you have to do is just right click on it and hold the right button, and then you can look around. Pretty much just like in any game. If you want to move, well, W, A, S, and D, similar to like in any movement you would have in a FPS game. So it's very easy to get around your scene and basically just move around the scene. There we go. If you want to zoom in, hold down the right button, press the C, it will zoom you in. As soon as you let go of the right button, it will zoom out again. All right, so that's for the movement. Now, other thing that should be noted for the viewport here is that you can change it. For example, the first thing that you can change is if you go over here in these options over here, if you click on it, it will give you the option to basically go in a orthographic viewport, which is going to be similar to what you would have in Macs, and you can see all of the shortcuts next to it. So if I go to top view, you're basically seeing this entire scene like you would basically see it inside a 3D modeling package, be it Max or Maya. If you go from the bottom, seeing the same thing, left and right. So for now, I'm going to go back to perspective. And the next thing that we can change here is also the mode in which we're seeing this. By default, usually it stays at lit. This is going to show you the scene as it will look with all the lights on. If you put it on unlit, you're basically going to get a very flat scene. You're going to see just the diffuse color. And you can also choose to see it as a wireframe or detail lighting, lighting options, reflections, and you have a lot of different options here to change, a lot of different things to see, but for now, we're not going to go in any deeper than just the basics. So here's a wireframe and go back to lit. Now, another thing that I would like to note here is all of these buttons over here. They do have their own use. So basically what you have here is the options for moving, for rotation, and for scaling. Luckily for us, it's the same shortcuts as you would have in Macs. So you basically have W for moving, E for rotating, and R for scale. So if I select anything and I want to move it, I just click on it, press W, and I move it. If I press E, I can rotate it. As you can see, the gizmo changes, and R will give me the similar idea as we have in Macs for scaling. Pretty easy for anyone who has done any work in 3D. Now, the next things that we have here is basically this thing here, which is the snapping options. If you open it, you can turn on snapping. And the next thing, this thing here, if it's snapped, this is at the intervals at which this thing is going to snap on. So basically 1, 5, 10, 50, 100, all the way up to 10,000, depending on the scale of things you're working on. Then you have the angle snap. Again, we have the same thing in Max. You can choose at what size or what is the angle at which you want to have snap. And then you have the snapping directly to a scale grid. And you can change the size of the scale or the scale of the grid. And the last thing here that you can choose is the camera speed. For example, if I move around here, you can see that the speed that I'm moving is okay for this scale of a scene. But in case I have a much larger scene, it will take me a lot longer to just fly through it. So I can increase the number to 5. And now I can just zoom through the entire scene. And opposed to this, if I move in a much smaller scene, I would like to move slower, so I can actually take a better look at what I'm doing or the scene or what I'm doing inside the scene, which can be very, very helpful if you are doing interior walkthroughs. All right, so give it back to 3, and let's continue on to the next thing. And this would be our content browser. Basically, this thing you're seeing here at the bottom. Well, in your case, it might actually not be at the bottom, because one of the things that I didn't mention so far is that the entire user interface is very modular, which means you can take and move anything that you want to have at a certain point wherever it might be in the scene. So what this means is that if I click on my content browser, I can click and drag it out, and this way I can even move it to another screen. So if I have a second monitor like I do, I can put it on the other screen, and this will free up more workspace on this screen. But then I can just go back here, and now when I bring it in here, what you're going to notice is these white lines on the edges. Now these are going to help me to put it anywhere that I might need it. So if I click here, or anywhere here, right there, now I can choose where I want to have this thing be. I can even put it here again. There we go. And have it there. So wherever it's convenient for me, I can place it. So what is the content browser? Well, basically, the content browser is, as the name implies, the browser in which you can see all of the assets, textures, or pretty much materials or anything that you might have added to our existing project. In the original folder contents here, I got from creating the project, I got first person folder, a first person blueprint, geometry, and the starter content. If I go into all of these, you're going to see that they all have subfolders, and inside you have different things. So if I go into props, I can find different assets. So if I pull out this element, I can rotate it around, zoom to it by pressing F, and you can see that right away we've placed an asset from the existing library. If I go in here, I can put in more assets, and over here in the content, if I go here, I can basically go through all of those folders and files that are inside. So the content browser is a very useful window in which you can see all of the things that you can add to your scene. Now, very similar to the content browser, here we have the world outliner. Now, the world outliner will tell us about everything that we currently have in our scene. That means that all of these assets that I just added, like both of these, if I click on them, you're going to see them get selected in here. Also, what I can do is go in here and select any of these elements, and they will be selected in the scene. So this is basically a list of everything that you have in your scene. And the very helpful thing about this is that if you know the name of something, what you can go here is go into search, and you can basically look for it that way. For example, if I click here on this one, you're going to notice this is called SM_couch. SM being the naming convention for a static mesh. So if I want to find this, I'm not sure how it's called, I can just go in the search, type in SM, and everything that with that SM will be in the line here. So this thing here, or the outliner, is basically where you have a list of everything that's in the scene. And the great thing about it is that whenever you select something, underneath it, in here, in this tab over here called details, you will be able to see all of the details about that given asset. So you can change the rotation, the location, the scale. If you go down, you have different options, collisions, lighting, everything. So these options here are basically what you would see inside Max when you go into the Modify tab. So all the options for whatever you have selected. If it's assets, it's going to be these options. For example, if I select a skylight, I'm going to have different options. If I select light source, again, different options. So basically, the Details tabs is the Modify from 3ds Max. Alright, so that should be enough to cover the basics of the user interface. So for now, I hope you guys had fun and you learned something new. If you do have any questions, leave them below and I will meet you in the comment section of the video. If you enjoyed this video, then please click the like button and do leave me a comment if you would like to see more content about Unreal, as I do intend to make more in which we will fuse everything that I was doing up until now and then fuse it with how to take that and put it inside Unreal. So as always, thank you very much for watching and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye now.